Good. So thank you, Bante, for inviting me to speak today and for the very kind introduction. Maybe I can start just by saying a little bit about myself. I went to high school in Ottawa and went to Carleton University and studied music. And while I was there, I became interested in meditation and spirituality, actually a little bit before starting university when I was about 18, 19. And then that became a really important aspect of my life increasingly, and music became less and less. I was originally really, really into guitar playing, but I continued to play guitar through the years, but the idea of enlightenment, the capacity of the mind of a human being to realize freedom from suffering, liberation of the mind from defilements, and forces of greed, hatred, and delusion. Basically, that there's an inner capacity to human being, which is something which we don't hear much about, or we don't really receive much instruction in our lives, and yet, and our world seems to be going very much in the opposite direction. And yet, there is always, I believe that there really was something deep inside that we can, like a capacity to realize something greater than ourselves, realize a true happiness, and through cultivation, through development, through meditation, through practice, through training our minds, observing our conduct, and gradually walking this path. So these ideas really rang true to me, and I finished university, and after 4 years, and I went to Taiwan, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my life, because actually my spiritual practice was the most important, but I wasn't quite ready to start anything in the music in the music industry. So I decided to teach English in Taiwan. So I went there for 3 years. And it was actually at that time, in my 3rd year in Taiwan, that I really got a deeper understanding of Buddhism. So these ideas that are taught in Buddhism, I was familiar with, but I didn't really learn them on a deeper level. I was practicing actually a different spirituality, which incorporates elements of Buddhism, but wasn't quite the same thing. And when I did encounter it, I was very inspired and felt that this really felt right. And since my spiritual practice had always been or for a long time had been the most important thing in my life, I thought, well, why not try actually just being a Buddhist monk? And so I studied different types of Buddhism, Mahayana and Vajrayana, and even different types of Theravada Buddhism, looking into different traditions. But I really like the Thai forest tradition because of the emphasis on personal experience, and I really just felt like the teachings of the masters in that tradition. At least I felt a strong connection to it. So I decided to go to Thailand and just see what it's like being a monk. You know. Actually, my meditation was never very good. There was a lot of faith that if I just keep doing it, it'll get better. Even though I've been doing it already since I was about 19. So by that time I was 20, 25. But still, the benefits were there. Like, though I'd never really experienced deep meditation states, I could see how beneficial it was to my life. It gave me a perspective on the world around me, on what I was doing. And sometimes even when my mind would be all over the place. It was, I could see, at least I got a sense of what's pulling me, what I'm concerned about in my life. I could see what the issues are, and realize, okay, well, I've got to work on these things. And but in general, I felt like it gave me put me in a good space of mind. So even after a sitting meditation, which you could say wasn't very good, but quite a lot of wandering, a lot of thinking about this and that, and maybe thinking about what was said before at work, or what's going to happen later. Still, after coming out, there was always this sense of calm, this clarity, and I found that was beneficial in my life, so I kept it up. But becoming a monk was a part of my experiment. It's like, okay, what if I was just to do this a lot? Could it get better? Is it always going to be like this? So becoming a monk was a bit of an experiment to see, like, okay, well, I'm still fairly young. Is this something worth doing in my life? Well, I've got the time. And if not, then maybe I'll go back to Canada and find some other kind of work. So it was more like a kind of experiment more than anything. Yeah, it's really something that really felt right. I remember even one day just kind of like Wat Pah Nanachat is a forest monastery in Thailand. It's quite you could say in some ways it's a bit austere, quite simple. They try to follow the old model of a Thai forest monastery. So there's no electricity in any of the individual huts, and a lot of them have holes in the wall, and like they're made of wood, and so there are cracks in the floor where the mosquitoes can come through and get very hot. And there's no bathroom. You have to kind of walk down the dirt path for a few minutes to get to a bathroom. And no washing machines, of course. So you wash your clothes, your robes. Just usually, I would do it just below my kuti, so my hut. And there was some running water. We did have that. So I remember one day just kind of washing my clothes in the forest, and looking around at the trees, and just and listening to the sounds of the insects, and just feeling, this just feels really right. Just the simplicity of it, and doing things by hand, being kind of on my own, focusing on my inner world more than anything else. So so I just kept it up, and so now it's been about 10 years. So this actually just come back to Canada to visit with my family, and I'll be going to the U.S. for there's a monastery in the U.S. I'll be staying there for the winter retreat, and then after that we'll see. Not quite sure. One thing was interesting when on the flight from Thailand, when I was just about to arrive in Toronto, it was early morning, so it was like the sun had just come up, and I noticed that it was a nice sunny day. But then from the plane window, you can look down and you can see the clouds. They're below you, and so I didn't think much about that fact, and just was enjoying the fact that it was a nice sunny day. But of course, as the plane went down into the clouds, the view of the sun disappeared, and when I arrived in Toronto, it was cloudy. I thought that was interesting, From down here, it seems like a cloudy day, but up there, it's actually always sunny. When you're above the clouds, it's always sunny, and when the clouds are above you, it's always cloudy. So I thought that was a nice little simile for Dhamma practice. How can we make our lives more sunny? How can we be above the clouds? This is what we're doing in our practice. What are the clouds? And all the various causes and conditions that create stress and suffering in our lives. But it's possible that through our practice we can find ways of being above that, overcoming that. So what would a mind above the clouds be like? Someone who has always patience for whatever arises in his life or her life. Whatever someone says to her, she's, even if it's something very harsh, she would immediately be able to respond in a skillful way, with compassion, thinking more about why the other person is upset, what's causing them to feel so bad, rather than why are they offending me, why are they saying this thing to me. Someone who's got patience and compassion, with wisdom, being able to see the causes and conditions in our life, in reality, basically, that the mind is just really a combination of thoughts and feelings, perceptions, arising, passing away, and interrelated, influencing each other, and kind of being able to step out of this narrative, not always seeing things as the world and myself, but just seeing more things more in reality, which allows a kind of space. Less likely to take things more seriously, less likely to take things too serious. And so even when things are going crazy all around you, your life maybe doesn't, it seems like there's no control, it's feeling a bit helpless. Someone like this wouldn't feel helpless. It would just recognize, okay, right now it's like this. How do I respond to this? And sometimes there's not always a perfect solution. So you just do the best. And you know that, the person, they would just do what they can, and if sometimes not everything is good, but that's all right. They wouldn't get guilty or feel like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, because they know they did what they could. So this is a mind above the clouds, a mind not affected by these forces, whether they're external or internal. And through our practice of meditation, we can gradually do this. The more we practice meditation, and taking a few minutes each day, however much time we can, to come inside, still the mind, become more focused, alert, aware, gradually more and more calm and stable, steady. Then we see things more clearly. This allows us more space to evaluate what's happening in our lives. When things come up, we have an opportunity to then resist, or if you feel an impulse to get angry, or to pick up our smartphone because we're feeling a bit restless. We have the space then in our mind to catch that. We develop that through our practice. And the more that we do this, the more that we practice meditation, also there's a greater sense of fulfillment in our lives. A sense that we're in contact with something that's real. All the advertisements and the news, the TV shows, all the stories that are around us, our duties and responsibilities at home and at work. You can't say it's not real to a certain extent, but it only goes to a certain extent. They're fictions, they're stories, they're ideas that we agree upon, which are not ultimately true. Doesn't mean we don't have to fulfill those responsibilities and duties, but they're something that we've created. But when we come back to our meditation, we're in contact with something which is true, which is real for every human being. And and this should naturally allow us to feel more at ease, or a better sense of well-being in our lives. That this is what's really true. This is what's real, and allow us to act more skillfully, more easily. But then we also need to look into our what's causing, what's suffering or stress when it arises. So meditation is one thing. We need to do that, and actually it's important to come back to that in our daily lives whenever we can, not just for the time in the morning or in the evening when we do our practice, but always coming back when we have a few minutes to come back to the breath, go back to the sounds, come back to the sense of not self, or in everything, the perception of not self or impermanence. But in addition to that, we also need to look at what's causing our suffering. When are we? Sometimes we can be suffering and not even realize it. Some things are some more subtle. And so to kind of having an eye out for the things that are causing us stress. And when is the mind getting pulled in one direction or another? This is sort of like wisdom in action. There's the wisdom that discerns arising and passing away, which is seeing things truly as they are. But there's also the wisdom which is understanding cause and effect relationships, which lead to which are causing either well-being or happiness in our lives. And so it's for sort of like a scientist in it. Observing, well, what if I do this? How will this affect? If I say I do more, I've been really angry today. What if I do more loving kindness meditation? Will that affect my anger tomorrow? I've been really angry recently, or or I've been, these days I find it difficult to do my meditation. Feeling a bit lazy. But maybe we start then reflecting on death, the impermanence of our life, the uncertainty. Maybe that by doing that we'll feel a greater sense of urgency, a sense of importance. Okay, I could die at any time. What's important in my life? Okay, I need to do more meditation. So we can kind of experiment with causes and conditions, but observing is the important thing in any scientific experiment. We need to observe carefully the causes and conditions, and so we need to. So that's another aspect, is kind of looking at how we feel guilty, how we a sense of self-hatred is a big problem for Westerners. Being able to catch this, and then looking for causes. Why is it that I'm acting that way, or feeling like this? And then trying to find ways to overcome that, but not being too focused on getting results quickly, but just simply like that. But just putting importance to this, because being a sense of being happy, being happy human being is actually should really be the priority in our lives. Of course, in a way that will bring happiness to others as well, which is what Dhamma practice does. Dhamma practice is about finding true happiness for ourselves, but in the process, we're developing virtues, we're developing attitudes and faculties which are always beneficial to those around us. So this is how I see the, how can we become like the person in the plane looking over the clouds and feeling that it's always sunny, rather than being the person down on the ground feeling like it's always cloudy, even though it's the same day. So it's just a gradual process of practicing our virtue, developing our good qualities, developing our meditation, developing our wisdom gradually. But I really think it's important. I do want to emphasize the meditation aspect, coming back in our daily lives to what's true and what's real. And so I think that's really what I wanted to share with you all today. Hope it's been beneficial. Over there in the back.
I've been meditating just a couple times past few days in the morning, and I've been realizing I've been getting like chills or like goosebumps after I finish or throughout while I'm doing it. Is that supposed to mean anything in relation to meditation, or have any meaning of any sort?
What I think is that there are lots of things that can happen, especially when we start meditating. The body can react in various ways. Sometimes it can feel like you're spinning like a top, even though you're sitting right where you are. But actually, it's all just normal, And so we get goosebumps that can happen. It can happen in a deep meditation state, or it can happen in very beginning states, and so it's hard to say what it means, or it's maybe not so. It's not easy to, or maybe not worthwhile putting too much meaning on it or emphasis on that. So all sorts of things can come up. The important thing is that in our meditation is that we're learning to still the mind and focus the mind and see things clearly, and get us having a sense of well-being and happiness. This is very important because people can get stressed out actually meditating, as funny as it sounds. So keeping that in mind is important. Yeah.
In the forest condition, what is the daily routine like?
The daily routine, well, it's different in different monasteries. Generally, every monastery, the monks will wake up early, usually at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. At the monastery where I ordained, became a monk, Wat Phai Nanachat, we wake up at 3 a.m. and then we begin our morning chanting at 3:30. We gather in a kind of hall like this and do about half an hour of chanting and then an hour of meditation. And not all monasteries do this every morning. Some do, some don't. And sometimes the meditation is first and the chanting is second after, and sometimes the other way. And then usually after that, there's a bit of cleaning, and then we go off on alms round, pindapat. It's where the monks walk with their bowls in the village, usually just at the crack of dawn. That's why we have to wake up so early, so that we're able to get our meditation and chanting in before dawn. And usually sometimes you have to walk for quite a long time, like up to a few kilometers. It takes over an hour or sometimes 2 hours to come back from alms round. And then when we do come back, usually the food will be all put together and then organized and then offered to the whole community. So we will share whatever food is offered on that day. There's also people who come to the monastery, not just the food that we receive when we're walking in the village. People will come and make food and offer it at the monastery as well. And This is the same throughout all the forest monasteries. And usually by 9 a.m. We're finished with that. We only eat once, so you just get what you need for the day, and then the idea is to go back to your kuti and practice. Kuti is a hut. Sorry, I apologize if I'm using any unconsciously using Pali and Thai words that you don't know. But so we go back to our huts usually around 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Sometimes there's a Dhamma talk after the meal. Sometimes there's a Dhamma talk before the meal. If it's on a Uposatha day, an observance day when there'll be a lot of lay people coming to the monastery, and they're all Thai. But the abbot of my monastery is German. But all the teachings he gives are in Thai, except to when it's to local people. Actually, everything that's in the meeting in that hall tends to be in Thai. And then afterwards, he might give a talk to the monks and the visiting lay people from who are international. But it's basically free time until the chore period, which is around, I guess, usually 3 to 4:30, something like that. 3 to 4, 3 to 4:30, which is, in most monasteries, it's just sweeping. At Wat Pah Nanachat, it tends to be a lot of cleaning different buildings, but also sweeping. Each monk tends to have their own duties. There'll be some monks in charge of one area, another monk in charge of another. Some monks are in charge, or kind of helping with sewing. We sew our own robes, and we tend to make a lot of stuff by hand. And so one monk will be designated to help teach others and help keep that area clean and fixing broken sewing machines, this kind of thing. And so we have it usually for our particular duties. We'll have about an hour and a half in the afternoon to focus on that. Sometimes it takes longer, so sometimes we will do it also after the meal. Sometimes there are extra communal work projects going on after the meal, around 9 or 10. So it's not always the same. But on a normal day, we would go back to our kutis around our huts around 9 or 10, and then the idea is to practice during that time. Do walking meditation to help digest the food, and usually for about an hour, 2 hours, something like that, and then taking a rest, maybe doing a bit of study after a short rest, and then meditating some more. We have a drink, like a cold drink or a hot drink, which is usually just like fruit juice or tea, cocoa, after the chore period, and then that only takes like half an hour, and then there's another break, and then I guess monks will shower during that time, and then we have another evening meeting where we do chanting and meditation. One of the nice things about Wat Pah Nanachat is that the meditation period, the bells rung after an hour, but it's not required that you get up. So sometimes monks will sit on for another hour or even more if it's going well, and then you go back to your hut and take a rest, wake up again at 3, and that's basically the daily routine. Yeah?
I have a bit of a challenge with my monkey mind.
Okay.
Really? I'm wondering if I find that I will be, even if I'm driving or if I'm doing anything, I have an opportunity, it just kind of comes to me, and I realize that I'm going off in different directions, thinking about things that are outside. If I spend even just a few minutes bringing myself back to that mindfulness, even if it's only for a few minutes, I believe that will help me get better at doing it for longer and longer periods. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the more, it's almost like a muscle, yeah? Like the more we exercise it, the stronger it gets. Or like it's something like you're putting force into like something like, I don't know, like a car you're pushing, you keep giving it a push and it goes faster and faster the more you push it. Sorry, I apologize if I'm not speaking loud enough.
You're quite loud enough.
Okay, good. And yeah, that's just how it is. The more that we can come back to our state of mindfulness, to the clear state of mind, the easier it becomes to do that, and the deeper it will get, and the more, the longer we'll be able to hold it. It just takes repetition. Yeah. So that's right. Very good. Oh, sorry, didn't see you over there.
For people like me who don't know anything about it, could you translate a bit what the chant is?
Which
Like
chant?
the one you usually do.
The opening chant.
Yeah.
Do you want me to chant it?
Oh, here. Where? Oh.
Okay.
I think I'm not enough, right?
Okay.
You can hear me, though. Well, I have been explaining that chant is paying respect to the Buddha. It's like I pay my homage to him, who is blessed, worthy, and fully enlightened. So that would be.
Is that like almost like a prayer that would be said by different people in different ways, by different monks in different ways?
I know in Theravada tradition, Buddhist tradition, we normally begin every session. It could be a service, it could be a program, it could be a Dhamma talk. We begin that by paying respect to the Buddha.
But that's always the same chant.
It's the same chant in Pali. This is in Pali. And in Mahayana Buddhist tradition, they normally do it in their own languages. Let's say Chinese monks and nuns would say that in Chinese. Japanese monks and nuns would do that in Japanese. Korean monks would do that in Korean language. And Tibetan monks, which is the Vajrayana tradition, Dhamma tradition, they say they do this in Tibetan language too. But in Theravada Buddhist tradition, all monks chant in Pali. They say the same. So, any questions? Anyone wants to be a monk in forest tradition in Thailand?
Does anyone know approximately maybe the percentage of monks that become monks and then they get out of it later? Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, it happens. I don't know the percentage. It's fairly normal.
It's a common thing then.
Yeah, it's common. It's at one point or another. But there are a lot of us that have not. But there's certainly a lot that's either in the first year, after 2 years or 5 years, or sometimes even 10, 15 years that they'll decide to go back. It's actually in the Thai tradition in particular, the Thai Theravada tradition. It's fairly accepted and to some extent expected that monks at some point will go back. But of course, it's hoped that they won't, and they'll stay monks for the rest of their lives.
Well, it's also the kind of cultural practice, like in Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Bangladesh, except Sri Lanka. Every boy should become a monk for a short time. It's called the temporary ordination. So, you want to be a monk? In my case, let's say, I became a novice monk at the age of 10, and I just followed the cultural practice. I became novice monk just for a short time. But my parents never thought I would be staying in the temple. So I liked it, and maybe it's also, this is my personal experience, I believe in my past life I had been a monk. And so that had an impact on my life in this lifetime, because even as a boy, I was very familiar with the temple. And I would be part of the temple chanting, meditation in the village. And then when my teacher sent me to Sri Lanka, actually everything became so familiar. Maybe I was in Sri Lanka in my past life. Everything became so familiar. In my group, there were 7 of us. I'm the only one who is remaining. The rest are gone. Even there are prominent meditation teachers in the States, like Jack Confield, who's the other guy called. And they had been monks in Thailand for years. When they came to the West, they found it very difficult, and so they decided to go back to their life. But as a lay person, they are doing a great job teaching Dhamma, teaching meditation to the public. They have become prominent figures in North America.
Are they allowed to come back once they leave, or can they come back?
Yeah, of course. You can.
Do some come back?
Yeah. There are people that although they have gone back to their life, they find it very difficult. Then they realize what kind of peaceful life they had. But sometimes they get caught up, once you have a family. Then it's very difficult to go back. Unless your partner lets you go. Thank you, Venerable Sallekho, for sharing your story, and I think it was very inspiring, and they have learned so much, and I think this story has so much to teach us. And I was wondering how come a young man like him, beginning, leaving everything, and went to Taiwan and Thailand and became a monk, and he's still a monk. So it's good to see the young monk. This is also kind of my vision, to see the young, energetic monk trained, well trained, and coming back to the society to show the way to peace or freedom from suffering. There are people who are looking for peace of mind, freedom from their own personal struggles. And so these young monks, their story gives motivation and inspiration. I think that's a great thing. And Venerable Atalo and Venerable Sallekho, we have another young monk living in St. Catharines these days, Venerable Yutanamo. Actually, he also became a monk after seeing me at McMaster University. And when he saw me, he was so excited. So then, after 1 year, he decided to go to Thailand. He became a monk. Now he's back in town, doing a great job, very educated, experienced teacher. So we are, I think, Canadians are very fortunate to have some Canadian monks, including I think our most senior Canadian monk is Ajahn Sallekho, right?
Yeah. right.
more senior, a disciple of, well, people believe in the enlightened one, Ajahn, including Ajahn Brahm. So they are doing amazing service to the world. There are people who are looking for their teachings, inspiration, motivation. So I'm very grateful to Reverend Arturo for telling me about you. And so I said I would like to have him in our weekly class to give the Dhamma talk. And so today you got to hear him. And in fact, I was going to talk about my story. I believe some of you here to hear my story of what happened last week. Maybe next week I will be able to talk about that. And so thank you. Now let's do the blessed chanting. Okay, so I will see you next week.